Welcome back, Jim, in Miami. Please let everybody know who you are.
Hi, I'm Jim Cassel, co-founder of Cassel Salpeter, a South Florida-based middle market investment bank.
So, Jim, I know you started out. You had your educational background was political science and economics, and then you moved into law, and obviously now you're in the investment banking business. Although you did start legal, how did all this evolve for you?
For me, I always had an interest in business and politics. Early on in my career, I decided that politics was not where I was going to take my path. And part of it was just frustration and wanting to make a difference and thinking that I could make a difference through business and other venues other than actually running for political office.
Hmm.
I started practicing law right out of law school with my father. I was fortunate that I knew if I got out of law school, past the bar, I would have that opportunity. And very quickly, I built a very nice practice, generating a fair amount of business, enjoyed what I was doing, and became pretty much a corporate securities lawyer and had an opportunity with a then client to join an investment bank. And it was funny when I went to tell my father, who I was practicing with, at that point a fairly significant sized firm, that I was going to leave the practice of law after about 17 years. His comment was, "I'm really surprised it took so long," because he always thought I would have left sooner, because I always loved business, doing deals as lawyers, doing deals as an investment banker. Very enjoyable to me, and it's what I enjoy doing today, really putting together and doing deals.
Um, I've been fortunate to work with a lot of different types of people, nationally, globally, as you have different sized businesses from pre-funded to funded to large corporations. Um, how have you come to enjoy, working with smaller businesses, larger deals? Is it more exciting? Is it more complicated? Is it both? What's your perspective?
I've worked with large companies and I've worked with small companies. Large companies, you have less of an impact, and they're generally much more sophisticated. Where with small companies, don't get me wrong, they can be very sophisticated, but they really need help, look for help, and in many cases are willing to embrace the advice and assistance. In other situations, small companies can be, and when I say small companies, I've worked with companies that have revenues of $300+ million that their financials are on QuickBooks on a cash
Right.
basis, which is an amazing thing.
I
And
know.
to help them transition from that, level of sophistication, which is not very sophisticated, but frankly all they needed to get ready for that next level, is something that's very enjoyable. And small companies, especially family-owned businesses, have a great dynamic to it, because sometimes the family is wonderful, sometimes it's dysfunctional. It can be a little bit of everything. I once remember going out to Tennessee to visit a company to see if we could sell it. And we were fortunate enough to meet with the owner and his son. And the owner was in his late 80s and the son was in his mid 50s. And I turned to the owner and said, you brought us out here because you're interested in selling your business. Why are you interested in selling your business? And he turned and pointed to his son and said, "What do you want me to do? Leave it to him? You can't write this. You can't make this stuff up. It's just the best."
It's very true. I had a client where I placed the president of his nutrition company, and he also did not loved his son, but did not want him running it as the president. He knew he had to drive revenues, but he had to bring someone else in. And but even that was an interesting process because both sides had to be nurtured. The candidate had to know that he was going to give him the authority and the ability to do it, and the owner had to know that he's bringing in a guy, and can he trust him with his business?
It's always a challenge, and family businesses have such a dynamic. On the one hand, you might be their financial advisor. On the other hand, you think you're the family counselor.
Right.
I've had more times than not. My wife happens to be a psychologist, so maybe I've picked up a little of that by osmosis. But sometimes you're just counseling people. They come to you to do something which they really don't want to do, but they're not willing to deal with the issues, sit down, have honest discussions, and you almost have to send them back and say, "Look, go talk to your family, have this discussion. When that's over, then bring back the family, and then we can decide what you really want to do, not what you're telling me." And it's interesting.
It is very interesting. Kind of a good segue to another question I have. And actually, it's interesting. I do know private equity firms, by the way, that are on QuickBooks. Now that you mention it,
Oh, those are sophisticated shops.
some of them actually are. You'd be surprised. A couple, if I told you. But
They're probably on QuickBooks Pro. They probably elevated to the.
That would make
Look,
sense.
QuickBooks is a great thing. I mean, we run our business on QuickBooks, but ours is simple.
Right.
But some businesses, they probably should elevate themselves, maybe to Great Plains or something just a little bit better.
There you go. Well, so you've been engaged in investment, private equity arena, and you talked about, being a little bit of a psychologist also. How do you recognize leadership in terms of how their communication skills, their ability to develop trusted relationships, including with you maybe as a new advisor, or what other traits do you see where investments are made, major deals are made, how that all comes to play?
Recognizing leadership, it's good. The good news is it's not one size fits all. If you read, various books about leadership by the Jim Collinses of the world and such, they have their view of what, they'll highlight certain leaders, and in some cases, some will argue that there's a certain traits that run through all leaders. I'm not sure that's the case, because I've seen great leaders who are very vocal. Right. I've seen great leaders who are very quiet. I've seen great leaders who lead from a front. I've seen great leaders who are in the back, and then they try to run to the front when they figure out where the pack is going so they can lead. And some who sit in the back and lead by nurturing. So, and to lead people, you can't lead everybody the same. I mean, the military may do it, but businesses can't do it. And right. It's industry specific, it's people specific, it could be region specific, it's just very diverse.
Yeah, and we've seen it in sports too, even with the Miami Dolphins, emotional coaches and quiet coaches, right?
What we have seen consistently since Coach Shula, don't get me started there, is we have seen that we have not had any leaders who are capable of building winning teams. Yeah. That we've seen, and that's been consistent. Everything different personalities.
Well, what did they say? Remember they said when Dan Marino was playing, they said, enjoy it while you can because you don't know what you're going to miss when you don't have it anymore.
Well, we got that lesson better with LeBron when he came to college here in Miami for 4 years and then went home after college.
Yeah.
So, I'm one of those fans who, although I loved when he came and disappointed when he left, I look back and appreciate we had 4 years that maybe people in Chicago got with Michael Jordan or with Wilt Chamberlain or people of that ilk. But, generationally, few towns have that for a long period of time or have that year after year, except maybe Boston, where the football team does things to make sure that happens every year. As a Dolphin fan, I can say those things.
There you go. Well, that's leadership also.
It is one kind of leadership.
It is.
It is. And it's been successful, in terms of winning games. Not the kind of leader I would like to aspire to be, but
it's sometimes deflating, though.
It is. It's unbelievable.
So, anyway,
we're going to kick that ball down the road a moment.
As you know, our firm conducts board searches. We do a lot of board advisory, and so on. If you're speaking about leaders, I'm interested to hear of the companies you deal with, the ones who have boards. How do you see the right fit there? How do you see them participating? The ones that are working, the ones that are doing it properly.
I sat on the board of a public company for 9 years, a New York Stock Exchange company, and I was blessed to have what I thought was the best board that I have ever either sat on or actually worked with. And it was great because we had great leadership at the top in terms of a chairman. We had phenomenal, active directors. They never walked into a meeting where I ever thought any director had not read the board book in advance. And I will tell you, the board book could have been hundreds of pages.
Wow.
So everybody came in prepared. Everybody had different expertise. You didn't have 5 people with the same sort of backgrounds. You had very different backgrounds. People were really great listeners. So they would listen to what other people say. They would listen to what management said. They would then question those people, but not question them to make them look bad, because that's not, good leaders don't need to make someone look bad.
No.
They need to help someone look better. And good leaders it doesn't have to be they look bad so you look good. They can look good and you'll look better, or they can look better and you'll look better. It can be collaborative. But a good, good leadership also has to make tough decisions. We went through a management change of that company when things were going well. The CEO decided he didn't want to remain as an active CEO, and the number two person he didn't think was the right person for him going forward. Mm-hmm. And he was willing to make a very tough decision. And then when he made the decision, the new team that was brought in, he didn't just talk the talk, he acted that way. He supported them, he was there. So, great boards are active, they're supportive, they're helpful, they set policy, they don't meddle day-to-day in things. They let the management do, and if they're uncomfortable with what management does, they change management. Right. I mean, that's really what good leadership in a board does.
Yeah, well said. I mean, I think that's a fantastic way of saying it, and I've seen too many times people come to board meetings not prepared, and it's a waste of money and time and everything.
I've seen them sleep in board meetings. No, literally, I've seen people. Was that
for the mattress company?
No. But with that, come on. No, but it's funny. Years ago, I went to buy a hospital business for myself, and I went to the first board meeting with the full board, and literally one of the people who was the medical director who was on the board fell asleep during the due diligence meeting, part of it. While he was sleeping, I said to one of the other people, loud enough so everybody can hear, when we buy it, he's the first one to go. Of course, today, probably under the American Disabilities Act, I would have a problem for that because he probably was sleeping because he had some health issue or something, God knows.
Right.
But, he wasn't paying attention. And I don't know how you are actively involved in anything without at least paying attention.
Yeah, it's true. And I think that relates even to volunteers. And a quick little story, I did the search for Memorial Healthcare System, actually, in South Florida for their head of volunteers. And they'd have like 1,000 volunteers from college students to senior citizens, basically. And, a lot of times volunteers say, well, I couldn't make it, I'm just a volunteer. But leadership of that group is also interesting because you've got to make them, if they volunteer, you have to make them accountable. And it's not an excuse you're a volunteer anymore.
Absolutely. I see that with my wife's charity, with her volunteers, how they spend a lot of time nurturing the volunteers.
Right. Yeah, it's tough. So what advice would you give up-and-coming leaders, young people? It's a little bit of a tough world out there. A lot of entrepreneurial opportunities, but it's also tough. What advice do you give up-and-coming leaders on how to prepare for their future in what really is a global business world now?
It's an interesting question. Young people today have it very different. Technology, the way they communicate, where you and I might have a phone call or in the old days a letter, or today an email. They're living their life texting. It's interesting. I think it was I forget which football team. It may have been San Francisco that they brought in a technology person so that the team could learn how to communicate better with their players because the players don't have the attention span, and that's an issue with younger people.
Right.
So instead of sitting through a 2-hour meeting, they do a 2-hour meeting with 10-minute breaks every 20 minutes so they can catch up on their emails. So it's a big challenge today. So young people, I think it's important that they listen. It's important that they get mentored if possible. It's important that they read about how other people have led. Not that they should, do everything others do,
right,
but it helps mold you. They should, and I think a big thing is really pay attention. And, one of the things I see with a lot of young people is the multitasking when you're dealing with them is a problem. Or at least I think it may not be a problem. It may be my problem because they hear what's going on and they're texting because they grew up playing video games, watching TV, and talking on the phone. I couldn't do all three of those things. They're much more talented than I am. But I think it's a challenge. So to young people, I think, paying attention, learning, read. I think it's, very important that they educate themselves about everything that's going on. And, they try to do their best, and they've got to take criticism. There is a group of young people today who were so nurtured and told how great they were, and no one ever told them
right,
that they were, bad. I remember once talking to some people. We went to the, softball game for the little kids. At the end of the season, there were 6 teams. They gave out 6 trophies. What is that saying? That 6th place is good? Sixth place is not good. You
What
know,
was
it's
that?
you know,
Remember Meet the
it
Fock?
really.
Was it Meet the Fockers that they had this display of trophies and ribbons? The 14th place, 10th place.
I mean, it's one thing to give to the first place team and the last place team because the last is memorable. But everybody in between, you know, life is not about coming in second.
Did you hear about it was a high school recently that had 200 valedictorians.
Great, great.
That was a
That
long
sounds like that's interesting.
it's a long
Did,
ceremony.
wow, a lot of speeches. A lot
Yeah,
of
it was,
speeches.
but it's good. It's really good advice. Hey, listen, thank you so much for participating in this part of our leadership series. I appreciate it.
No, I thank you very much. Great to talk to you. Have a great weekend and a good holiday if I don't talk to you before.
Thank you. You too.